When it comes to extending the knowledge source for Microsoft Copilot, there are two main methods. Number one is Microsoft Graph connectors. Now they call it Copilot connectors. And the other one is Power Platform connectors. Now, obviously, if you use the Graph connectors, it's going to be enabled for your Copilot chats throughout the organizations. And with Power Platform connector, you most likely will just attach that or connect that to a specific Copilot agent and deploy it to a certain group of users. The main difference comes down to what type of data you want. Because with the Graph connector, the data is ingested to Microsoft Graph on a schedule. But if you need a real-time data, this is where you need the Power Platform connectors because it works on API. Now, Microsoft has this very detailed page on comparing the differences of two types of connectors when you should use what. It has a decision tree, so have a look at this if you're interested. But the bottom line is, if you want a real-time data, you're going to use the Power Platform connectors. And today, we're going to build an example by connecting our Copilot agent to a financial services connector. Because they don't provide a connector, so we're going to build it ourselves. Within Power Platform connectors, there are two types. One is called the pre-built, which is published by third parties and also by the vendor themselves. They're verified, such as your Workday or your ServiceNow. They all publish their pre-built connectors into the Power Platform. Because the financial services we're going to use today do not have such a connector, we're going to build a custom connector today. And the financial services we're going to use today, this is a free one called FMP. It gives you a free API with a limitation, of course. You can see they support vast amount of API endpoints, including cryptos. Most of them has a crown. You will see on here. That means it's paid, but these ones without the crown logo, it's free to use. So we're gonna build a custom connector wrapping some of these free API endpoints into the connector and teach our Copilot agent to use them. Power Platform Custom Connector is nothing but a wrapper around APIs. So for your choice of external knowledge source to be able to work with our Copilots or Power Platform, first they need to have published APIs. That's number one. Number two, you can build this connector from scratch by just manually typing all the endpoints and requirements, which I'm going to show you in this video first. And then you can also use an OpenAPI definitions. Essentially, they are the same. I'm going to show you both. So the use case here is to build your Copilot and connect to third-party professional financial services data. Think of Bloomberg, London Stock Exchange. As long as they have APIs and they don't have a vendor predefined created connector for Microsoft, you can build a custom connector. Those services are very costly. So in this demo, I'm going to show you how we're going to build a custom connector for financialmodelingprep.com. This is a free financial API services. Anyone can sign up and you get your API key as soon as you sign up. And there are loads of API endpoints you can use. Now in their documentations, for each API they have very good documentation explaining the endpoint, the query parameters, and also the limitations. So most like this you can use for free. And some API endpoint has a cron like this that requires a paid or upgraded membership, which you can't use. So we're gonna handpick a couple of API endpoints from this list and build a custom connector around it. To create a Copilot connectors, you can only start from Power Automate or Power Apps. So let's go to Power Automate, go to Custom Connectors, and we'll click on New Custom Connector. I'm going to show you how to create from scratch first, and then later on we'll do it from a OpenAPI file. So let's go create from blank. We give it a name, call it FMP, financial, anything you want. Continue. Here we go. First page, you want to have a logo so you can see it later on when you have a lot of connectors. But for now, we're just going to have a simple descriptions and API endpoint. Now, if you want to know what API endpoint is, go back to our FMP website. On the FMP website, it clearly says this is the base URL. So let's copy that. And we'll go to the custom connector. So we'll change to scheme is HTTPS. Then we'll just leave the host at that. And we'll put stable under the base URL. Okay, and give it a descriptions. This connector provides financial, say real-time financial data. And I just picked a background color for this logo. Let's upload. Before the host, we don't need all this because we already selected scheme there. So just host. We'll go next. Security. Now authentication, in our case, we're going to use API key. Now for your enterprise production use case, most likely, let's say you have Bloomberg or London Stock Exchange, you will already configure single sign-on and onboard it to your OnTrust, so you will have app registered. In that case, you're going to use the OAuth 2.0 and you're going to use a proper dedicated access. For us, we're just going to use API key. Now go to our parameter label. To authorize your request, add $API key equal to your API key at the end of every request. So if we click on, let's click on one of these sample, right? Stock quote for Apple. We click that, it will open up. So this is a live response from the API. And if you observe this URL string, this endpoint, you have the base URL there, your base endpoint. And then you have the query, Apple, and then you have API key attached in the end. Okay, so this is a query parameter. If we come back here, we can see the parameter location is actually a query, not a header. The parameter name is called API key. It has to be exact same. Now label, you can call it anything. Just something the user can understand when they get prompted. Now let's go definition. Here is the bread and butter of the custom connectors. Now let's add these actions. What are actions? Actions are the actual API endpoint we're going to use. Different actions means different API endpoints. So let's switch back to the FMP website. I know the first one I want to use is the stock symbol search. So let's add that. Can we copy this? Yep. So summary, we'll call it a stock symbol search. And I'll give it definition. This action searches stock using symbol. And this is a unique string to identify operation. Operation ID, what does that mean? Operation ID is this one, which is search symbol. So that is our, okay, we just copy from this string, go to that. So we'll come to the operation ID, which is search symbol. Now visibility, what is visibility? If you remember in Power Automate, when you connect to actions, there are some actions that always come up on the list. All right, so that's when you set important. There's some actions that don't come up automatically. You're gonna click on more. That's when you set other visibilities. For here, doesn't really matter, but we'll set as important. For the request, we can import from sample. So what sample we're gonna get? I'm just gonna come to copy this symbol search request, paste it in. Usually it's a get, and then we just go import. Now you see this is request URL, and we got query and API key as a parameter, which is correct because we can tell from here in any search query you have the query, you have the API key, 2 parameters. You can also edit these parameters if you think that's incorrect. For example, you can click on edit. Right, so this is a query. For example, we want to make sure it's required. Otherwise, what's the point using the endpoint, right? You need to provide a query when you do a search. So now, if we look at this, it has a red asterisk. Right? For example, we can also do this API key, make sure it's required, and of course you can edit other ones if you know how to do that. When it comes to the response, if you click on this default here, you can see name the default, header, body, there's nothing in it. So let's come back and we can import from example again, or actually we can do it from here. So import from the sample, and what we're gonna do, we're just gonna copy this response from this endpoint, and we're gonna paste that as a sample again, and we will import. And now you can see all the parameters are here, and again you can go edit if you want to make any changes, have more descriptions. Okay, so we've got our request, we've got our response, validation. I think that's it. Next, I'm just gonna repeat this action by adding more connections here, more actions here, and I'll fast forward. Following the same method, I have added a few more actions, including the income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. That's common ones. Now there is a bit of a problem with our actions here. As you can see, they all have exclamation mark. Operation ID does not start with uppercase letter. I don't know what that means, but I think because our base we left as, we might need a / here. And as soon as we did that, it become green. I think this has something to do with our whole URL endpoint. So if we finish this, and I can show you, add another one here, another one here, another one here. Okay, so basically you just need it to be assembled as a full URL endpoint query in the end. Okay, that's the idea. So let's move on to the next. Actually, no, we can. The code section is optional. We don't need to do that. So we just go create connector. Before we could consume it with our Copilot, we can also do a test with our custom connector. So click on test. Now first you need a connection. If you haven't done one, you probably need to create one. So it takes us to the Power Automate, and this is the API key label we created before. You can call it anything, right? So it prompts you to provide API key, paste our API key in, and then we'll create a connection. Next, we will do a query. I don't know why okay, this API key actually is not required. Remember we made it to a required before? We don't need it because it's already in our connections. So let's wait for the connection to load, and we'll do our query search symbol. We'll do APPL for Apple, because this is only searching symbol. So let's refresh. We got our connections, and we go test. That should return the company. You can see status 200 success, and return Apple. Okay, all Apple, all stock symbol that contains Apple has been returned. Okay, so if we do a name, remember here we didn't make these required because we didn't go to the response to edit. API key is not required, it's already in our connections. We can do a name called Apple, and then we'll do a test operation and it will return Apple as well. Or maybe we'll do a balance sheet. We'll do Apple. Now this actually, I don't know whether it's a symbol or a name. Let's try that. Okay, the symbol definitely worked. Common stocks. Okay, so this is the balance sheet. Okay, so now we know the custom connector is working. Now let's put it into Copilot's agent and see how we can make the Copilot use this connector instead of general search. Let's come to Copilot Studio and click on Create Agent. Now, by default in Copilot Studio, if you create any agent, it will be just like your general Copilots from Microsoft. It will have all the general knowledge. It will have the internet access. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to connect the knowledge source using this custom connector we just created. Okay, as you can see, the agent is already done. Very simple now. And now this is a general agent. And if we go back to this overview, you can see that you can choose different model. Okay, so maybe we can leave it at GPT-5 Auto. Okay, we're gonna leave pretty much everything but default. Now, what I'm gonna show you is we're gonna add or use this called custom connectors we just created. Now, this connector is not a knowledge. We do not connect as a knowledge. These are for like documents, websites, stuff like that. We will add it as tools. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on add a tool, and we will look for, what do we call it? It's FMP Financial. That's what we called before. But what you can see is not a connector called FMP Financial. Instead, you can see all the actions that we have created under that connector, and you're gonna add them one by one. So let's add the first one, which is company name search. And we will, remember we created a connection before when we test it. We're gonna use the same connection. And this is the same description that we had it when we created a connector. When we define these actions, you can change them if you want. Go add and config. Now you can see all these same details that we provided to when we creating the custom connectors, but you can change them. These are just got copied over. Now if you hover on this exclamation mark, it says in a few words, say what it is and it should be used so your agent can use effectively. So it sounds like this description is quite important to tell your Copilot agent when to use it. Now if we have a look at documentation from Microsoft, when you add tools to custom agents, it also says description. A description of the tool. Generative orchestration relies on this description to determine when your agent should use the tool. Write a clear, specific descriptions, including what the tool does and when it should be used. And then there's also additional details. Allow agent to decide dynamically when to use the tool. Ask the user before running, authentication, and description. So I think this description field and this allow agent to decide dynamically when to use the tool is very important. Because for an agent that already have general knowledge and internet access to get to the latest information, for a scenario like us that's connecting to a real-time financial services, it is quite important to get this description right. So you want to make sure your Copilot agent gonna use your third-party custom connector instead of doing a generic Bing search. So to get it right, you really want to ask your Copilot or ChatGPT to create a good description to make sure this action will be used. But for now, I'm just gonna modify this slightly to explicitly tell the Copilot, use this tool when user wants to search, stop using company name. Okay, so here, when the tool may be used, agent may use this tool at any time. Right? The wording a little bit different. On documentation, it says agent can decide when to use it. We'll leave it at that. Ask any user, no. And in the completion, after running, we'll say we want an agent to write a response for us. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So to test this first tool, how about we turn this tool off first, and we make sure we are let the Copilot to retrieve the answers from the general knowledge and the web search. So let's go back to the overview. Let's save that first. We will ask a question here. So go to the overview, scroll down to the web search and turn it on so your Copilot agent can use its general knowledge as well as the latest web search. Okay, and under the tools, we have our first tool that's being disabled. And let's ask Copilot, what is the stock symbol for company Apple? Now the correct answer is obviously APPL. And let's see whether you'll get that. The stock symbol for Apple is APPL. Okay, so we have no tool turned on. That is coming from all these references. So you know it's using the web search, rationale. Oh, and also the reference here, right? From Yahoo Finance. So that's good. We know to use web search. Now with our tool, let's turn it back on. We want to ask the same question, but this time I'm hoping it uses the tool because that's what we tell the Copilot agent to do. So maybe we'll reset it here. How do we reset it? Let's start a new test session. So this is the first tool we're testing, and it's the company name search. That should do it. So we'll ask that. Oh, turn that on. Save. And then we ask the same question again. What is the stock symbol for company Apple? Now on the left side, it actually shows you the decision trees, how it's working through it. It looks like it's going to the tools we have just created. That's great. Now this is the first time we're running it. It says you have to find, okay, let's click on connection manager. Maybe the connection we created before is not running. So let's check that. That's the connection we created when we were testing it in the Power Platform, in the Power Automate when we're creating it. So let's keep running. Okay, and we'll go back to the Copilot. Retry. Connection failure. Return the error. So what does that error mean? Let's have a look. Let's ask Copilot. My Copilot agent has reached out to the FMP financial tool but returned an error. Please read error code from my page. Okay, let's see what does that mean. One thing I do find a bit odd is I don't remember when we had the chance to provide API keys. I'm fully visible. Okay, let's just copy and paste that. put it in. You might have some problem reading these because these are not a plain HTML site. Oh, that is not message. HTTP 400. Let's go back to our tool. So what I expected, missing API keys. I did not get a prompt to provide my API keys, which is right. Okay, so we know the connection is good. We definitely provide API key in the connections. When we did a test in the Power Platform connector when we created. However, if you look at the documentation, when you perform a query, this API key does need to be appended at the end of each request. That means having the API key sitting in the connections might not work. If we look at our connector, how we were made, only the first one, search symbol, I have required API keys. Now, we don't really need to require the query, because the query, the Gen AI will get it from your, based on user's intent during the conversations. So let's add the API key as required field, and then we test it again with the Copilot. Okay, now every actions inside our custom connector have the API key required. So let's update it, and we will go back to our Copilot Studio, saving the custom connector. We're gonna remove this first tool we added, and we'll add it again. Okay, so after I modified or updated the custom connector, I re-imported the tool. As you can see, now actually in my query and API keys, I made both mandatory. So in the API key, I've changed this to custom value and actually provided my key here for this action. And for the query, I use dynamic field with AI. That means based on the conversation, the AI will guess the user content, intent and provide relative information for this query. Also, I have updated the description to make it more explicit, more likely. So if you go to the company name search API, it says this API is used for searching symbols, company names, and exchange details. It is useful for retrieving ticker symbols where you only know full or partial company name. So what I did, I copy everything and I modify here into the description, because remember this description is say what it is and when it should be used, so your agent can use it effectively. So it's quite important. What I did is I said, use this action first to search for ticker symbols, company names, blah, blah, blah. And then I change here, this endpoint is useful for retrieving ticker symbols when user know the full or partial company name, but not the symbol identifier, right? So let's ask the same question. What is the ticker symbol for company Apple? You can see now this is enabled. What we're hoping is it's gonna use this connector instead of a general web search. So let's see whether it does that. Okay, so we can see it has gone to our custom connector. This is the first action we have provided. It has picked up our query, which is Apple, and of course used our API key, which is the custom value we provide there. And these are response. Now these are the structured JSON response from the API, and because we've selected in the completion to construct response using AI, it has outputted in a natural language method. So going back to our tools for the agent, I'm gonna add the remaining actions one by one. Follow the same method. We'll be back. We are done adding all these A actions or A tools from our custom connector. So you can see they are all enabled. If we look at the configuration for them, they're all the same. So make sure the goal of description is nudging and telling your Copilot when you should use it. So always start with use this tool to do blah blah blah. Now we might need to tweak this later on, but this is what we start with. For each tool, I have this description and when this tool should be used. Agent may use this tool at any time. They used to be called the agent can decide when to use, but now this is the option we're going to use. And we're leaving these as default. Under the input, I am making the API key because this is a requirement from FMP. API key need to be attached under every query. That's why I made it compulsory. But if you want to add other inputs, which I did, I just missed this one. You can add it manually from here by clicking add input, and dynamically with AI is fine. So your Copilot will basically provide a symbol based on the user's conversation. And then in the completion, you want the response on write the response with gen AI. Otherwise, you're gonna get the raw output from JSON from the API endpoint. Okay, so let's save that, and then we can do a test. We'll start a new test session, and this is for our A tools. So let's test first by asking the company that we know is including our free API, and then we ask something that's not included and see how it switched to a general search with web. Let's say, what is the symbol of company Apple? What is the stock symbol of the company Apple? And we are expecting it will go to our connectors. And it did. Do we get a response? Let's fix our connection first. So the connection goes to stale if you don't use it for a while for the testings. We'll submit that, and it will be connected. And this should be A tools. Come back here and go retry. What is the stock symbol of a company Apple? And it has gone to our custom connector and used stock symbol search tools. Let's ask the closing price. What's last 5 days of Apple share price? I'll make it deliberately a bit vague. Not opening price, not closing price, just share price. And let's see. Okay, gone to the stock price and the volume data API. And currently is getting the information and composing the response to us. Let's see whether that works. Okay, very nice. So you can see the JSON response from the API output, and you can see this is a AI crafted response to human. Okay. How's the latest? How's the cash flow situation? All right, I'm hoping you're gonna use the cash flow API. Okay, so this seems all working. Now the quick test to see whether it will try something else using the web search instead of the connector is I'm gonna ask a question that is not included in my free FMP endpoints, the API endpoint. So I know mine does not include any stocks outside the US. So I'm gonna ask a Australian share stock. How about another company, ASXPME? So I already know the symbol. Let's see whether the Copilot will first try to reach out to the custom connector and error out. Okay, so this is a bit slow. It's still responding to my last question. How's the cash flow situation? And these are the responses coming back from our cash flow statement API. Very good. It's very slow. Let's wait for it to finish. I might pause. Okay, so the last question has finished. Now it's asking generate response from my question that shouldn't be included. Okay, so you see here says I couldn't find any information about the company with stock symbol PME. And now obviously that is not the response you want to present to user. You want to tell the Copilot if you can't find any answers, you want to use a different method. For example, use your general knowledge with a web search. So let's see how we can fix this. And you can see on the left, it performed a search and respond nothing, and it replied as no information found. So for Copilot or any type of Gen AI agents or generative AI in general, they just always in their own headspace and hallucinating or that. There's no explicit way of instructing your AI to do exactly what you need. So we can only try our best using something called system instructions. So what we're going to tell this Copilot agent is to use the FMP first, and if you can't get information, use the general knowledge, right? So we're coming to Copilot and asking, please draft a system instruction for my Copilot agent. As you can see from my page, because you can read my page, we would like this FMP financial expert agent to retrieve information from the custom connector FMP financial first. Explore all the tools that are available to use. If agent, Copilot agent cannot find what user is asking, fall back to Copilot agent's general knowledge and use web search if needed. So let's ask Copilot to create a more structured or better system instruction for our Copilot agent. So you come to the instruction under the overview for your Copilot agent, and you're going to paste your instruction right here. So that is quite complicated. I don't think we need that. That's a bit too long. It might work though. We just copy and paste this. If it doesn't work here, obviously you can just ask Copilot draft it again with a simpler system instruction. But do notice limit is 1,000. So what the modern this Gen AI large language model are not scared of, a lot of text, a lot of data. More data the better. Let's save that and see whether we can rerun this. We'll ask the same question but a bit simpler, so let's start with this, right? Let's start a new session. We'll begin with what are the last 5 days of Apple share price, and I'm hoping you will still know what it's doing and use FMP first, which it did. That's good. Now after the response, I'm gonna send my second prompt. What about ASX company PME? So you can see the endpoint is a bit slow, but we got that. It's a free service, so nothing we should complain about it. Okay, now What about ASX company PME? Our FMP endpoint will not give us the answer, and hoping our Copilot agent will fall back to the web search. Still trying. And it completed. I could not find a stock symbol, and it did not fall back. Oh, it did. Look right here. It says I cannot locate any data on PME, although based on general knowledge. So let's ask for a follow-up question that will use web search from general knowledge. Would you like me to fetch the recent price for the other final details? Please fetch last 5 days of price. And let's see whether it will use the web search. So it's thinking through, processing. It's trying that again, and finally it failed. The connection has returned error, so basically we stopped at error. So let's have a look, how can we fix this error? Now if you click on this error code, it's going to take you to the thinking map. Okay, so this is the tree for the topic, and the topic now is on error. Right, so these are all good. These are grabbing all details we need, like this error code, blah blah blah. They are good. They're useful for troubleshooting, but you probably want to hide that for your production, right, if it all works. For this demo, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add a note here on error. So let's have a think. What do we want it to do when we have error? Now under advanced, there's something called generative answers. So if we add this note, basically when it errors out, first, you will not see this error message yet because our block sits in front of or before the error message, so you won't see that. Oops. And then, under this generative answer block, basically we're just telling it, do your generative AI things on this block, right? So data source will come and turn on web search. In this example, we just want a web search, and then we want user input. For the user input, we could just use a last input. So let's see whether there's something called last. From last user's input, so last message is text, system last message text. That looks good. Save that, save. And let's rerun it. See whether this time it will error out. So maybe I do not need to restart everything. This is on the error. So we'll start this again. What about ASX company PME? And then we'll ask to fetch the last 5 days price. It shouldn't fail because now we have the generative answer block, right? And it says I wasn't able to retrieve from the financial API earlier. That's great because that's what we wanted to go first. Next, it asks, would you like me to fetch? All right. It says, please fetch last 5 days of price for PME. And it should give us the response. You can see from the left, it's going through general knowledge, and then you will probably use the web search to get the price. Now what is this? Okay, so OpenAI direct attack. The content was filtered due to responsive AI restrictions. That's new. There's a block step that I did not know about. But anyway, we got the response. This is last close, last previous close. And let's check the price for PME, last close, ASX, PME, last close. So the price is $240, but looks correct because you see it has gone to the internet search, right? The two references. So that looks correct. Now what we try to figure out is what is this responsive AI restriction thing and how we get rid of that, because clearly it shouldn't be blocked, it's just stock share price. I had a look at this again and looks like this content was filtered, not blocked, even though this is called block step. That's why we are still getting the response, and it's just being filtered. If we have a look at Microsoft support page, resolve responsible AI content filter error, you can see we're getting the exact same error message and error code. And this is caused by the Copilot Studio content moderation policies. Okay, so to resolve that, what you need to do is go back to your Copilot agent. Now click on settings. You can see under the orchestration, we're already using the generated AI orchestration for all your agent response, which is what we want. Under the moderation, if you scroll down, right now the content moderation level is set to high. So you just need to change that to moderate or even low. So this is something you can do. Now let's save it. We change to low and then we can ask the same question again. Close this. Go back to our bots. Now remember we were asking the questions about a stock share that is not supported by our custom connector. So what is the stock? What is, let's try something different. Company name of ASX PME, because I'm providing the stock symbol. Now it will get no response from our custom connector, and it will get from our search. Let's just activate the connection again. Submit that. Come back and retry it. Searching. Oh, somehow it went through my filter because I don't think my subscription has access to this. This action needs to be done to make the conversation as complete since the user request has been fully addressed. Interesting, let's ask something else. Give me the last 5 days price for PME. So last question is actually picked up the PME.ASX. That's the correct symbol. Now what's happening now? The available information does not provide the exact closing price. Okay, so it's failing with a custom connector. That's what we're expecting. And it's very slow. Let's see whether it will switch to our general knowledge with the web search. So this time, it did. However, the most recent closing price. So this is from web search. That's great. So it is working now. No warnings, no content filtering, and this is the error message that we didn't get rid of in our on error node. Right? Because on error node we had our creative generative answer on the top block when it's error, and then it's still going through the trees to produce the error code, right? And you can get rid of that in your productions. Okay, so that's how we can create custom connector from the scratch. Next, let's have a look how can we create a custom connector from OpenAPI definition. You can create a custom connector using either way. The outcome is the same. Now on Microsoft website, they will provide samples, and you just download the sample for the OpenAPI definition and modify them. It's a industrial standard. If we switch to our custom connector that we created using the manual or scratch method, you notice there's something called Swagger editor in your custom connector that we created in the last exercise. But if you turn that on, you can actually see this is an OpenAPI definition. So creating a custom connector from scratch eventually gives you the OpenAPI definition, and you can download it once the connector is created. When you open the file, it's going to be in JSON. So you can actually create OpenAPI definition using both the JSON or the YAML file. So this is a JSON. You can download it. You can give it to somebody else. You can save it as a copy. Next time, if you want to delete a custom connector and recreate it, very quick. Right? So this is something you download after you created a custom connector from the scratch, like we did previously. Next, I'm going to show you how we're going to do it the modern way, which we're going to use your generative AI. So go to your favorite AI friend. I'm giving my instruction very explicitly. I'm going to create a custom connector in Power Platform. Please create an OpenAPI file in YAML format. I like to use the following endpoint. So I listed all the API endpoint that we used, the eight of them, and I posted a link says check the API usage from this website. So hopefully it will pick it up. Then I also said make sure it has a good description, because that will be used to tell Copilot agent when and how to use it. And then I also followed with a Microsoft documentation about how to create OpenAPI definitions from the Microsoft website. Okay, so let's see what kind of result we can get from this simple prompt. Eventually you're gonna get a YAML file out of this. Don't stress too much if it's not perfect, or if it has some mistakes. You might be worried about that, because eventually as we importing this OpenAPI file to create a custom connector, you get to go through every actions for each API endpoint. That's when you can correct if there's any mistake. Okay, so we've got our file. I'm gonna save it and import to our Power Platform. So I just copied the whole YAML file into VS Code. You can see actually how it defines the actual endpoint, and then each API actions, the descriptions, the parameters, very good. Now, the VS Code actually picked up an error here, and for some reason it doesn't like this API here required as true, but all the other required as true seems fine. So let's see what is it about. We'll click on this explain and see what that means. True required. There must be plenty of API keys, so we'll go look for is it required true. It's fine. So why this required true is particular problem? We don't know. True. Interesting. So the analysis came back. It says run indentation. So it's not because this true is a problem, this schema is a problem, because you can see other than require schema, so we shouldn't have this indentation here. And let's just correct that and done. we'll save this YAML file and import to our Power Platform. Back in Power Automate, select Custom Connectors. This time, New Custom Connector, and we will select Import an OpenAPI file. We'll call it FMP Financial OpenAPI, and we'll import the file we just did. Select Continue, and here we go. This is already there. So let's do the icon again. Maybe we'll do a different icon this time. I don't think this icon background color is working. I keep trying different color, but none of them are effective. Anyway, so we have the connector description, and then scheme is already done correctly. You can tell. Go to that API KPI query. Even that is correct. It's not header for FMP specifically. Go definition. Here we go. So this is all the 8 actions. We just need to go through them one by one and make sure they are correct. Now, as you can see, the operation ID was not picked up based on the documentations we shared. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. You can go back and forth with your AI to try to fix it from the API level, the OpenAPI file level, or we just fix it up like how we did it with when we created connector manually from scratch. Just type it in and going through these settings one by one and complete these updates for these 8 actions. Let's do that. I actually went back to ChatGPT, asked it to regenerate it, and it still got it wrong. You can see I'm just fixing them one by one manually. You got this endpoint completely wrong, even though it knows the endpoint. It gets it right here in the request, but it gets wrong here in the operation ID. So very disappointing. ChatGPT 5.1 in December 2025 still gets a simple OpenAPI file wrong. Anyway, so we're gonna skip the code and find out we've done. We just gonna create connector. Now, because we modified it, we updated, this connector is good. And if we turn on the Swagger editor, you can see the complete OpenAPI file. Once the connector is created, you can also go download it from, when you click back on this custom connector, you can download the whole OpenAPI file. And we know that is a good OpenAPI file, okay? So let's use this new connector in the Copilot agent. I have re-imported all the A tools under our new agent. You can see that they're exactly the same, but you can tell the difference from this logo. I've used different picture, so we know it's coming from the new connector that's been built from the OpenAPI file. If you go to it's exactly the same, so I won't bother you with the details. Just make sure you have a very good description for each action or tool, and make sure you provide API keys and change this completion to write response with Gen AI. Make sure you have a good system instructions under the overview, which will help the AI agent to use your tool. And don't forget, under the settings, go to the orchestration under Gen AI. Make sure it's using the Gen AI, select that to yes, and adjust your moderations. You have to do a lot of tests to make sure that what's the right level for you. Okay, so let's test our agent. First question, give me the last 5 days of closing price for Apple and a summary of their recent income statement. And I'm hoping it's gonna get this information directly from our custom connector. Let's see, it's going through our custom connector and just gonna go to our connection manager to make sure. Always forgot about this. Make sure this is connected. submit. Okay, good. Let's go back and go retry. And then, after we get a response, we will ask the same question about a stock it shouldn't have access to. So let's say, oh, interesting. Looks like we need some tweak. I asked two things in one sentence in one prompt. First, it returned the price, but then it says it doesn't have the income statement. And then it went to the different API to get income statement. Here's the summary. So there's some work for us to do to make this experience more cohesive and smooth. Right. Now let's ask. Oh, it's keep giving me information now. Okay. So the second question is we're going to ask for a stock. Let's say PME, and you should get the data back from general knowledge and web search. So make sure under the overview your web search is switched on under here. Okay, so we ask that, and let's watch how this map will change, whether it will go to, it will probably error out first because we haven't added the logic on error, so we might get the error, and then it will error out on the income, the financial custom connector first, and try the web search after. So I couldn't find the data, and it looks like it hasn't given up yet. So from the left you can see it tried to search different stock, and it returned an empty array. Now let's just wait. The performance is a bit bad. But for our talk, it's okay. I do not have the latest closing price, so you try both, right? Doesn't have the closing price, also doesn't have the information for the income statement. However, company name looks like my company name API endpoint actually have access to stock markets from different outside the US. Okay, so same problem. We will just need to add a generative AI node on error, like what we did last one when we created the connector from scratch, exactly the same, and this problem will be gone. It will continue to research, find the answers, and put them back to you. Okay, I think I will end here. I won't repeat that. Okay, so this is how you can build a custom connector with any external data source, as long as they provide API endpoints. And this is how you can extend your Copilot agent with these third-party data source using the custom connector. And all these custom connector will be imported as tools in Copilot Studio. And you can see this is just a endpoints from one custom connector. You can import many of them. So that is also one of the limitation, because as you can see, it was very repetitive. FMP has hundreds of API endpoints. Right? Every single of them is an API point from this drop-down menu. Hundreds of them. Other financial institutions such as London Stock Exchange, this one shows 79. And when importing them, building them into custom connector, each API endpoint, each action represents, from here you can see, represent a tool. So you can build one custom connector and it will connect. It will contain lots of tools, and it's a very repetitive task. When, as you saw, I did it in the video demo, whether from scratch or even from OpenAPI definition. As you're importing them into Copilot agent, you're gonna do this one by one. So although you can ask your vendor if they don't have a predefined or vendor built connector for Copilot, you can probably ask them to provide you a OpenAPI definition file. Even you can build any custom connector you want as long as they provide API. It is still a lot of work and maintenance when you're importing them into Copilot to build an agent. So just be very selective and understand what are you actually providing to your users. Be task specific. Don't have a custom connector with hundreds of actions that it will be very hard to test. So that's the other part. Make sure you're gonna do a lot of tests, because a Copilot agent or any generative AI is not deterministic. It's very hard to tell a AI explicitly what to do, what not to do. They just hallucinate all the time. So the only thing you can do is to provide a good system instruction, and under the tools, as you're importing them for each API actions, you have write a good descriptions. So hoping that the Copilot agent will use the right tool at the right moment. Okay, so hopefully it helps someone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.